What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm finally back from vacay. I went on a family vacation to Europe. It's pretty sweet and feels good to be back in the States and back in the garage and getting after this exhaust manifold. So I have started to port out the I guess inlet side of this exhaust manifold and just kind of grinding down that area where the gasket sits. And you can kind of see from that first shot where I had the gasket up against this, kind of checking where I've already started to work on this, how much different it looks once you do this. There's quite a big just step off that air sort of just hits when it flows out of the cylinder heads into the manifold here. And so getting rid of this whole thing will allow the air to just kind of flow in a lot nicer and smoother, and there will be like zero obstruction there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's not really too bad. I have tried a couple different bits to make this work. I picked this bit up this morning. This is an aluminum oxide grinding stone. This one actually is working better than I had this metal one. I was initially using this metal one right here, and it was working, but it was taking a lot longer. And turns out these are actually meant for much softer metal, and these grinding stones are actually meant for cast iron, which I believe that's what this is. And so it seems to be working a lot better. And so yeah, I'm just kind of going through and just lightly hitting the edge here, knocking down that sharp edge and removing some of the material inside, but more so just kind of giving it this nice rounded, beveled, sort of ported look here, so that the air can just sort of drop down in there nicely with zero obstruction there. I did shove some towels in there as well because we don't want to push any of these shavings up into the turbo. Yeah, pretty stoked to do this. Picking up free horsepower, which is always nice. Can't complain about that. I mean, even if it's only like 5 horsepower, it's not really taking me that long to do this, so I may as well. So I'm hoping to get through a lot of the stuff that needs to be finished up on the engine in order to have it dropped into the car. I don't know if I'll get to being able to actually install the engine in this video, but I am going to try. So we'll see how far we can make it. There's a lot of weird little things that I still have to do in order to make that happen. I have to pull the engine off the engine stand, get it mounted up on the engine hoist. I need to install a new rear main seal, which I'm kind of kicking myself for not doing that before I even put it on the engine stand. But whatever, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. I also will need to get my clutch and pressure plate kind of cleaned up. It's been sitting on the shelf for so long, it's probably collected some dust. So we need to get that installed. And then obviously this exhaust manifold, up pipe, turbo, I also want to install all of those pieces. I'll leave the intake manifold and TGVs and stuff for once it's installed in the car, because I think this way it will be easier to get it dropped into the engine bay without all those pieces on it. So I did actually get some replacement heat shielding for this manifold, mainly just for the outsides here and over here. And it's just this stuff here, guys. It's this stuff's really affordable, and apparently it works really well. I'll put a link to this in the description. I think this whole roll cost me maybe 30 bucks. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of material on there. So I'm going to mold it around and fasten it to these points where the old heat shield went. I just had to remove that old heat shield because it was just so haggard and was really dented up, damaged, etc. And then another thing about it that I don't like is those stock heat shields. I always have to cut a big hole in it right here in order to be able to access the O2 sensor and get a wrench on it if I wanted to either replace it or remove it. I like removing them whenever pulling the engines because I have made the mistake of knocking that thing and completely bending it. And if you've ever had to replace one of those before, you know they are not cheap for what they are. So yeah, I'm gonna like kind of cut it out in such a way that I can always get like a wrench on that and access that thing. So I think it'll look a lot nicer too. I'll probably just leave the middle piece on here and just kind of clean it up a little bit. But I mean, it's heat shielding, guys, so it really doesn't need to look pretty. Once we get all that stuff done, we'll get it thrown on the engine. And guys, if you're gonna do this yourselves, I don't wanna like be the weird safety guy over here, but I would highly recommend wearing some eye protection and some gloves. All right guys, so this one I think is ready for the next step. I'm just gonna try to finish like one port first, just to be able to match everything in a similar way. I also got one of these. It's just like a flap wheel sanding disc thing. These, in my experience, really do a good job of like polishing stuff after you've grinded it. So we'll go ahead and throw this on the Dremel real quick, and then see if that kind of is able to clean up some of the little scratches and stuff that are in there from that little stone wheel. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that looks real nice. It really smoothed that all out, like just looks super polished now. So that's before. You can see I kind of started to hit it with the grinding stone right there slightly, but mostly it's untouched, and that is after. And then if I put this gasket on here, you'll see, let's turn it around. So get it centered over the holes, right about there-ish. So you can see how nice that opens that up. See that like big ass step right there? It's just flat that the air basically hits. Now it's not gonna do that. It's gonna flow all nice into there. Really easy to do this, honestly. I would imagine all said and done, probably take me an hour total to like do both sides and then polish it up with the flap wheel. So I would say it's worth it. Like I said, I'll spend an hour of my time doing easy work like this for even 5 horsepower. So if it's more than that, great. If not, whatever. Still a fun little project, you know? So anyway, I'm going to bust through this real quick off camera, get it all finished up. I'll show you guys the result here in a sec. All right guys, so here is the finished product. So I got them all ported out on both sides. Obviously I went through and polished up the surface. Well, didn't polish up the surface, but just cleaned off the surface really well. Got all the old gasket and what have you off there. So we have a nice clean surface to made up with the gasket. Installed the heat shielding, refinished this heat shielding, which actually turned out really nice. This stuff worked out okay. It's a decent like temporary solution. I'm gonna just install the OEM heat shielding once I can find a decent set of the pair that goes on the outside for a reasonable price. So far I haven't seen any pop up, so I'm doing this for now. This is a cheap solution for the time being. It was only like 20 bucks for this stuff off of Amazon. It works pretty dang well, and it'll help control heat, which I think is important since we're sticking with a top mount for the time being as well. I want to mitigate as much heat soak in that engine bay as possible, so definitely want to leave this on. I just took this off. It was pretty easy to crack all of these nuts loose, pull the shield off, stuck it in the sandblaster, and just hit it with some spray paint, and yeah, looks really good. Looks all OEM aluminum. So now we can get this installed on that, and we are one step closer to throwing it in the engine bay. There's so many little things that I still need to take care of. Like these ABCS cam bolts aren't tight yet. Reason being is I don't have the appropriate wrench for those ones. The ones I have are for the non-ABCS. I've used a timing belt before and like pinched it with vice grips, so I may try that just to see. Otherwise I gotta order that wrench. All right, there's 1 and 2. Now a manifold. These are 28.9 foot-pounds. Let's get my gasket here. All right guys, so I had to backtrack a little bit here. Pulled the up pipe back off, and that is because this pipe in the back of this passenger side cylinder head that sits right there, I'd forgotten that I hadn't replaced these crush washers yet on this banjo bolt. So in order to access it, I had to pull the up pipe. So now I need to go grab some crush washers from the auto parts store. And I also set this little rig up. This is an old timing belt. I usually keep some old ones on hand for things like this. And basically what I did is routed it through and clamped it on this side for this AVCS cam bolt, and then clamped it on this other side for this one. And I was able to torque those down to spec just like that. So yeah, if you're ever in a pinch and you don't have the tools, you can set it up like this with the vice grip. Just be aware, you don't want to reuse this now, because as you can see, it definitely puts some like indentations in the belt and probably weakens it. So you don't want that bad boy to snap. Anyway, I had already done these. These ones, the lower ones, the exhaust cam bolts go to 72 foot-pounds. These are 54 foot-pounds. And yeah, so we're good there. And once we get the banjo bolt all sorted out and our up pipe reinstalled and the turbo installed, we're also going to throw this 3MI Racing oil drain line, because I have an IAG AOS that I'm gonna also Y into this. That's what these are for, so that the air oil separator can actually have some gravity to drain properly. And once we do all that, then we can jump back to actually timing this thing. All right, so a little update here for you guys. So I did go and get all new crush washers, replaced all these banjo bolts, or all the crush washers for every banjo bolt. This one, the one down there for the coolant drain, and then all the other AVCS ones. While I was doing that, I decided to just do the timing real quick, and I had actually forgotten that this bolt right here, I need to rethread. That is for this smaller pulley. So need to tap that real quick. I actually have it all timed though, so I'm gonna try to like leave it. These ones are always, the left side is always a bit challenging to get them to stay put. So because I was able to, and I was able to get the belt on, I'm going to try to leave it. So what I'm gonna do is drill this out, insert a new thread, then I will pull this pulley back off. Hopefully everything stays put. We'll put that pulley on, then we'll slide this one back on. That's usually the last one that I do when timing these. As you can see, everything looks pretty good. We got this hash lined up there, the two, the one lined up there. Obviously we're at top dead center. And then you have these ones here, here, and right there. Misplaced the little handle for this bit, so I am using an impact. I know this is not best practice, but it's what I got. I just gotta make it work. thread tool here. And we'll start threading it in, hopefully. Oh yeah, smooth like butter. Check it with the bolt. Oh yeah. You can torque these idler pulleys down. I think it's 28.6 foot-pounds. That's good. That's good. That's good. Already did that one. My favorite part is that. Seems like we got good tension. Let's check it. Whoa, that sounds weird. I have no idea what that sound was. Hopefully nothing broke. Looks good. Just to check it, put it back at top dead center. As you can see, we're all lined up. Lined up there, lined up there, here, 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 and here. So, timing is all set. This belt, just so you know, it is still in great condition. It was barely used. It looks used because the paint that they put on these like blue Gates racing belts wears off like super fast and actually ends up on the pulleys. I reused some of these pulleys as well because they're still so new. So don't be alarmed. I'm not using a Haggard belt. This thing should be just fine. Let's mount that up pipe back on now and get the turbo installed. Turbo right here. I'm just gonna kind of set it in place. I'm not gonna put it on it. Reason being, so I just want to like measure where we need to cut this thing. Cut it a little higher to start with. I can always go lower. That. All right guys, there it is. Got it all fit up nicely. And yeah, I cut it a little bit lower than the initial cut, but didn't cut it right on that white line. The clip that's in there right now is actually on the white line that they put on there. So now we got this little dongle sticking out, but just tuck it back through here. We'll worry about that later when we put the AOS on. Next up is oil feed. Just replacing the crush washers on this guy. I'll leave it kind of loose so we can get this piece all dialed. Okay. Hopefully that's nice and sealed. All right guys, so there it is. Got everything all torqued down. The support brackets are all installed here and here. And I did actually have to turn this. There just wasn't enough clearance to have this drain line for the AOS facing the opposite direction, so we'll just have to like snake it around. That's probably why they give you such a long piece. We are pretty much good to go to move on to the next phase. I'm gonna get this coolant drain hose hooked back up real quick, and then we'll throw some spark plugs in, our coil packs, get the timing covers put back on, and then I also have the cam position sensors and the crank position sensor, and then we also need to torque this sensor back down and install our knock sensor. So once that's all done, I think I'll be ready to throw this up on the hoist. We can get our rear main seal installed, and then our clutch and pressure plate, engine mounts, and our little dust cover here. All right, new spark plugs here. These are just the stock temp. I did want to go with 1 step colder, but I also didn't want to wait. Just want to check the gap on all these. We are going for 030. Seems about right. Seems right on the money. I've just heard that sometimes people won't check these and they'll run into an issue with spark and they pull the plug and realize that for some reason they weren't gapped properly from the factory. So I guess it's good practice to always check, and that one's good as well. All right, let's throw these in. Heard that people use anti-seize on these before, but I'm not going to, because I looked it up and NGK actually doesn't recommend it, as it can affect the torque settings. So I don't know. I don't know what the best practice is. Maybe I'll regret it later. Got some coil packs here. These are not OEM, they're IP. I think ignition performance, maybe, something like that. And stoked to try these. I probably wouldn't have invested in these myself. I probably would have just gone with OEM, but they came with this car, so I'm stoked to try them. They're supposed to be better than OEM, so we'll give it a shot. I don't know that I'll really notice anything, but not noticing anything is probably a good thing. And in case you're wondering, these get torqued to 11.7 foot-pounds. Not that you really need to worry about it too much. So guys, I am not happy with these timing covers. I pulled the ones that I had already installed back off. They're just looking a little rough, as you can see. So I've started to just scuff them up, and I'm going to lay down a little bit of the trim black from SEM. This stuff is awesome. It's gonna make them look brand new. So I'm gonna bust this out, and I'll show you what they look like after. This is kind of a before. They were all kind of in similar shape. The center timing cover was even in worse shape. It looked like really faded and worn in one spot. The color was like different. It's kind of like a two-tone black. So I know it's just a timing cover and it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but it does to me, and it's an eyesore. So I am going to just deal with it now. And this is why this takes so damn long, because every time I run into a piece that I'm like, I don't like the finish on that and I want to refinish it, I have to stop what I'm doing and deal with that before moving forward. So, but we're getting there, we're making progress, and I just didn't want to keep staring at this in the engine bay wishing that I would have done something about it when I had the chance. So we're gonna knock this out right now. I'd say it was worth the detour. Sheesh, looks brand new. I almost forgot the knock sensor. So what's interesting about this thing, I didn't know this for the longest time. Looked it up in the service manual, It has a specific orientation. It's supposed to go like that, like a clocked orientation. So the wire is basically supposed to face that way, kind of into this groove of the block. And it has a specific torque setting. Apparently, if you don't use a specific torque setting, you can get like some false positive feedback knock. So yeah, I guess it's really important to make sure that you use the specified torque setting. This one goes to 17.5 foot-pounds, or 17.8 foot-pounds. There it is. One other thing I realized I didn't do yet was I hadn't tightened this oil pressure switch that goes right here. So this, you're supposed to put 3-wound on the threads. It looks like it is 18.1 foot-pounds. All right, flip this thing around. Because we have engine mounts. All right, these are STI Group N engine mounts. And the thing I like about these ones is they're pretty stiff, but they're not too stiff to where daily driving it is obnoxious. So that's pretty cool. And these get torqued to 25.8 foot-pounds. Finally, we get to install this bad boy. Alright guys, obviously I have the engine on the hoist now, and I'm going to throw in the rear main seal. So, use some assembly lube on this bad boy. Man, these things are so freaking tedious. We're in. Alright, I'm just putting one on to hold this thing, but I'm grabbing some Loctite for these bolts. Glad I still have some of this. I thought I was all out. I apologize for the fan in the background, but it's like 100 degrees today. And I'm sweating my ass off right now. Alright. Alright guys, so 52.8 foot-pounds. And a star-cross pattern, obviously. Just like that. Have the ACT clutch, the 6-puck here that we're going to be reusing. This thing's like brand new still. It's hardly been used. There's so much material on it still. And then this clutch cover. So let me grab I have the guide here somewhere. Where did I set that thing? Let me find oh, it's right here. What am I doing? Loctite on all these. I just looked up the installation instructions on ACT's website, they recommend, if you're reusing the OEM fasteners, to stick with the factory torque settings, which is a little weird because if you use theirs, their torque settings are much higher. And it's just based off of the grade of the metal that the bolt's made out of. And I believe that that's what the number on the top of these bolts are, so it says 8. I believe that is the grade. We could easily just use the associated torque setting from ACT based off of that this grade of bolt. I might just look at it again real quick and see how much different it is. The factory torque settings are only like 11.8 foot-pounds, I think, on these. So it's not a lot of torque. And I think it's because you have like the pressure plate pushing out against the bolts. It probably makes them pretty hard to loosen on themselves. But even still, because the torque isn't rated super high for these, I just want to use some Loctite, especially because this is their extreme pressure plate, so it's very stiff. It makes the pedal feel kind of insane, actually. I really like it though. It takes some getting used to. If you guys have been watching this build since the beginning, you'll probably remember when I stalled it in my driveway. That was because I wasn't used to how stiff the pedal was. I've been driving manual cars since I was 15, so it wasn't lack of experience, I can promise you that. It was due to the fact that I've never had a pressure plate this stiff before. But I'm really stoked to get used to it, and feel like I have it really dialed in, because it seems like it'll be a lot of fun. All right guys, so it is decided. I am going to use the ACT torque specs, which is 25 foot-pounds. I fucking knew it. I knew that was gonna happen. Well, maybe that was a bad call. All right guys, I got extremely lucky on this one. See it, how it's sticking out? I can just turn it. Now I'm starting to wonder if maybe I used too long of a bolt, just mistakenly. Because there's several bolts that I was noticing that look just like these pressure plate bolts, but they're slightly longer. Let's try this again. I guess it's probably just best to stick to the OEM torque then. They probably recommend that for like new fasteners. And these are far from new. It's been used a few times. Alright guys, so I just finished up torquing all of these to the OEM torque specs, 11.8 foot-pounds. Got red Loctite on all of the bolts. So now I think we are ready to drop this in the engine bay. And as you can see, we have our throwout bearing. That is the one that comes with the ACT clutch. And our slide pin and clutch fork, sliding nicely. I got it all greased up. And yeah, just trying to think if I'm overlooking anything. I don't think that I am. I've left this unbolted because I think it makes it easier to get the starter and other pieces in. And then I did mount this up real quick as well. This is the solid steering joint that only came on the STIs. Also got the left side axle in because I had been putting that off, but finally we got that in with a new seal. So that's all good to go. So yeah, I think we are ready to start installing the engine. All right, so got it all in line now. The studs are through the bottom of the gearbox. So now we just gotta push it forward. Oh yeah, look at that. I can't help but feel like our engine mounts are backwards. So I put these engine mounts on backwards. They were on the right side, they just weren't in the right orientation. Had them flipped around. Pretty funny, actually. Luckily, there's enough space under here to where it was pretty quick and easy to just flip them around. I don't know how I didn't notice, but I didn't until I almost had the engine all the way in. So, yeah. I guess it's another reason why you just shouldn't take yourself too serious. I already got the other side done, so just get this thing nice and tight, and we will just about have this engine installed. So we're back where we left off. Really glad we didn't have to pull the engine all the way out for that. That was a new one for me. I never made that mistake before. It's kind of funny. We're all lined up. Should be able to lower it now. Just gonna lower the transmission first. There we go. Yep. We are in. You can see, nice and made it up along here. Our pitch stop mount is aligned. And then underneath we have left engine mount through the subframe and right engine mount through the subframe. And one thing I'm not gonna forget to do this time is this. Hear that click? Now we know we're in there like swimwear. Well, there it is, guys, in all its glory. I didn't put all of the bell housing bolts in because I still need to put the starter in. It's over on the table. I just need to get it cleaned up first, so I'm waiting. But I got all of the other bell housing bolts in and tightened up, and I am super, super happy to have this piece all installed and really close to first start, honestly. I'm pretty confident by the next video we should be going for a first start, at least by the end of it. There's some wiring things that I need to sort out for the transmission. That 6-pin connector for the DC-CD controller. I need to source either the harness from iWire that allows me to just sort of run it as is without the DC-CD. I'm not a big fan of that because according to those guys, it's not the best thing for the center diff. I guess if you don't have a controller on these gearboxes, what ends up happening is it stays in the open position. And basically what that does is it puts unnecessary wear on the clutches inside that center diff, and they just start constantly like slipping. And so, yeah, I guess it's not good for them, and it can wear that thing out prematurely. So I'm not a big fan of that, especially with how much I've already put into this gearbox in terms of money, time, and effort to rebuild that thing and make it better with the new parts that I installed. So trying to figure out what I want to do exactly. It may be fine to just source that harness. That would just enable us to actually like start it without any issues. But I'm not too sure. I need to look into it a little bit more to see. So maybe it's not even a problem, but I just want to like figure that out first before I go to attempt for a first start. In the next video, we will be bolting on all the accessories for this engine, such as the alternator, power steering pump, AC compressor. I probably will hook the AC back up for now. I'm not totally sure. I don't really want to because these cars really don't run very well with AC, but it's so freaking hot, man. So I just imagine that It'll make my life a little bit more comfortable while I'm getting the car dialed in, but we'll see. It's kind of annoying to have to go through that whole process of hooking everything back up and then recharging the AC system. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. I may just leave it off and just deal with the heat for now. In addition to that, we'll have our TGVs bolted back up with the manifold and get our fuel lines going and the whole fuel system all installed, as well as the wiring. So definitely quite a bit of things to still tackle before it's at a point where I feel comfortable even attempting a first start. But we're getting there, and slowly but surely it will happen, and I really am shooting for that to happen in the next video. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hopefully it will be out mid-week. Now that I'm back, I am really gonna be grinding hard in this garage to try to get this thing ready to go and hit the road. So man, this is the 20th video, guys, which is crazy to think. So it's probably been like a good 6 months since I started in on this. And I get it, there's a lot of YouTubers out there that just pump these things out way faster than I'm able to, and that's great. One day I'll get there. Right now, I just don't have the time to be able to sit in here every single day just working on my project. So we're getting there though, slowly but surely. The channel's building steam. I'm consistently getting more and more subscribers and people interested in what I'm doing and inspired by what I'm doing, which is great because that's the whole point of this channel. So yeah, we're moving forward, we're getting there, and I'm getting better every build I do, and so that is really positive. And yeah, I'm super stoked to have this thing so much closer to being wrapped up. With that said, I'm gonna end this video here. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And also think about subscribing to the channel if you wanna see more on this build, because there is lots of cool goodies that are gonna go into this engine bay real soon here. So stay tuned for that. And again, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace everyone.